Here's the pattern I see constantly in growing organizations. You have good people, you've been doing this long enough to know what you're doing, you've tried to delegate, you've had the accountability conversations, you've hired better managers, paid more, and expected more. And somehow, every significant decision, every exception, every escalation problem still ends up back on your desk. Or if you're the operations leader in the room, every gap in the system, every contradiction between departments, every problem that has no clear owner still ends up with you. You've probably already asked yourself the same question most people in this situation ask. Why does this keep coming back to me? And you've probably already arrived at the same answer most people arrive at. It's a people problem. The wrong people, the wrong attitude, not enough accountability, not enough delegation. I want to spend the next 12 minutes explaining why that answer is wrong and what is actually happening. The people answer feels right because it's the most visible explanation. You can see the people who escalate the problem. You can see the manager who did not follow through. You can see the employee who did not execute. What you cannot see, at least not immediately, is the structure condition that made that outcome almost inevitable. Here's the test. If you have replaced that same role 2 or 3 times, and the same problem follows each person into that seat, the problem is not the people. The problem is the seat. The role itself is structurally broken. There's no clear definition of what it owns, no authority structure that tells the person what they can decide without checking with you, and no accountability system that holds them to a standard without your direct involvement. You did not hire the wrong person 3 times. You hired 3 capable people into a role that was never designed to succeed. That's not a people problem. That's a structural one. When most consultants talk about structure, they mean an organizational chart. That is not what I mean. Structure in the sense that actually matters is the set of systems, authorities, accountabilities, and operating rhythms that allow work to happen consistently without depending on anyone's presence, judgment, or energy. Let me make that concrete. A business with real structure has 4 things. Clear role definitions, not just job titles, precise descriptions of what each role is responsible for producing, what authority it carries, and equally as important, what it does not. Most organizations have job descriptions. Very few have role definitions. The difference is significant. Second, define decision rights. A clear map of which decisions belong to which roles. Most of the escalations that land on your desk are not emergencies. They are questions from people who are generally uncertain whether they are allowed to decide. When there is no decision rights map, everything defaults upward to you. Third, accountability architecture. Not a performance review system, a set of rhythms and checkpoints that make accountability a structural condition rather than a personality-dependent conversation. Accountability that depends on one person's willingness to have a hard conversation is not accountability. It's a personality trait. And personality traits do not scale. Fourth, operational systems. Documented processes that produce consistent results regardless of who's executing them. Not because you want to remove human judgment, but because you want judgment applied to the right things, not to figuring out how to do the same task for the 15th time. Most businesses at 15 to 50 employees have pieces of these things, but the pieces do not form a system. And a partial system defaults to the person who built it, which is usually the founder or the operations leader who has been quietly filling the gaps. Here's the part that surprises most people. This problem does not get better as you add people. It gets worse. Every new hire adds complexity without adding capacity, unless the structure exists to absorb them. Think about what's actually happening when you hire a new manager without the structural foundation in place. There's no clear definition of what that manager owns. There's no authority structure that tells them what they can decide without checking with you. There's no accountability system that holds them to a standard without your direct involvement. You have not added capacity, you have added another person who depends on you. This is why so many business owners describe a specific inflection point, usually somewhere around 10 to 25 employees, where the business stopped feeling like it was growing and started feeling like it was grinding. More people, more revenue, more problems, more of everything coming back to them. That inflection point is not a people problem. It's the moment when the structural debt that was always there becomes too heavy to carry on instinct alone. If you're watching this video, you have probably already tried several things. I want to name them, not to dismiss them, but because understanding why they did not work permanently is important. Better people. You hired more experienced managers, paid more, expected more. Some performed, some did not. And you were never quite sure whether the problem was the person or the environment they were working in. Usually it was the environment. Training and development. You sent people to workshops, brought in coaches, invested in leadership development. Skills improved temporarily. Behavior did not change permanently because the structure around the person did not change. You cannot train your way out of a structural problem. A framework. You read a book, implemented EOS or scaling up or traction or something similar. Some of it worked, and 6 months later, the parts that required consistent execution from people who were not you had quietly dissolved. Not because the framework was wrong, but because there was no structural foundation underneath it to hold it in place. Letting go. You made a deliberate effort to delegate more, check in less, trust your team. Things broke. Not catastrophically, but enough that you pulled back and the cycle started again. None of these things worked permanently because none of them addressed the structural root cause. They addressed symptoms. The symptoms came back because the cause was never touched. The fix is not a framework. It's not a training program. It's not hiring better people. The fix is installing the structural architecture that the organization never had. The roles, definitions, decision rights, accountability systems, and operational rhythms that allow the business to carry itself without depending on any one person to fill every gap. I want to be honest about what this is and what this is not. This is not a quick process. Structural correction takes longer than a quarter and outlasts any single hire. What we do at Foundations is a multi-phase engagement: diagnostic, design, installation, and stewardship, because that is what it actually takes for structure to hold. But it's a finite process. The structural gaps that are producing your reoccurring problems can be identified, designed around, and corrected. And once they are corrected, the problems they were producing stop coming back. That's the difference between treating symptoms and correcting causes. Before you try another hire, another framework, or another conversation with your leadership team about accountability, I want to leave you with one question. If you stepped away for 2 weeks completely, no phone calls, no emails, what would break and why? Take a moment with that, not as a thought experiment, as a real question. The answer is not a list of tasks you need to delegate. It's a map of the structural gaps in your organization. Every item on that list represents something that should be owned by a role, governed by a system, or decided by a defined authority, but it is not. That map is where your work starts. If you want to understand what that work looks like in your specific organization, the starting point is what we call a structural clarity conversation. It's a focused diagnostic conversation. This is not a sales call, but it's where we look at what is actually producing the reoccurring problems in your organization and what correction would require. The first conversation is free. You can request one at foundationsbc.com/FOA. The link is also in the description. The same problems keep coming back because the structural conditions that produce them have never been changed. This is not a people problem. It's a structural problem, and structure can be built.